This is Andrew Hada from Nothing Ventured Media. I want to tell you about all the feature films we've made and how you can see them right now. The last one is a zombie drama about how a pandemic and isolation could drive a group of people mad. When the virus hits, John finds himself alone and scared until he meets Michael, his protector. But when Karina, another survivor, enters the mix, everything that John and Michael knew will be turned on its head. The last one's a zombie virus movie that's somehow even more relevant today. Plus, it has zombies. Check it out. Borderland is a mexploitation film about living in El Paso. When Sarah finds herself in debt to the cartels, she has until sunrise to find some missing monies with the help of her executioner. Borderland is a true midnight movie and a lot of fun. The documentary Humble Spirits tells the story of the Hahn family, including champion Jennifer Hahn from El Paso, Texas. The entire Hahn family has grown up in the combat sports and has helped shape who they are both in and out of the ring. Humble Spirits, A Family of Fighters, is the perfect documentary for boxing fans of all ages. Finally, The Empty Space, winner of multiple awards, including the Sacramento Horror Film Festival's Best of the Fest, is a cosmic horror about Amy Andrews, who's dealing with anxiety and depression after a violent attack that killed her husband. As she tries to find herself, she starts to lose her grasp on reality. Or could it be something much more sinister? The Empty Space is full of twists and turns, with Grace DeWilder of Rue Morgue magazine calling it a powerful film full of excellent performances by practically every cast member. All of Andrew Hada's movies are available to rent or buy on streaming services such as Tubi, Amazon, and many other places. And if that's not enough for you, Hada Films is home to all of our short films. So take a look around and see what you like. Spend your day with Hada Films and Nothing Ventured Media. Now, let's start the bomb squad.
Let's get this
What's
over
up?
with. This is a good movie.
Let's get this over with. Welcome to the Bomb Squad. That's how we
What is
love to
going on
start things. Oh yeah, by the way, guys, just thank you all of our listeners. Our top 21 of the year. It's like our number 5 all-time video on YouTube, all-time video on all the podcasts. So, thank you guys for listening. That's pretty cool. I hope you liked it. I hope you loved hearing about Conclave. We're going to do
Yeah.
a Conclave podcast side one where every episode we discuss a different character from Conclave.
I'm down for that series. We'll do it on our Patreon.
Yeah, but thank you. Yeah, we really appreciate you guys listening, liking, and hopefully this it's a little bit different. It's a normal episode. Like and subscribe, but also we just talk about one movie usually. And today we're talking about Prince of Darkness, 1987, John Carpenter, the second entry of his Apocalypse trilogy, which last time I kept calling it The Fog. And so I felt like William hadn't seen it. I had already disrespected John Carpenter all over the place. So let's just watch it. Some people say that it's the best. Nobody says it's the best and nobody says it's the worst, but they do say it's the second one. It stars Donald Pleasance. It stars Lisa Blount. It stars Jameson Parker. All these names sound like I'm making them up, but they're not.
I know.
This
They're almost
is
famous
full of people. You look on their IMDb, they're like, oh, they were only in 5 things.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
is
No one went on to do more except Donald Pleasance.
and 4 of those things are John Carpenter things. I'm sorry. It also has Victor Wong,
Victor
who
Wong,
you know from every cool movie ever, and of course, it stars the best actor of all time, Alice Cooper.
Oh, yeah.
Take me to Dr. Frankenstein.
Okay, what are the 3? I know we did In the Mouth of Madness.
Mhm.
What is the other Apocalypse movie?
So the Apocalypse trilogy starts with John Carpenter's The Thing. And then it does Prince of Darkness, and then it's In the Mouth of Madness. It's kind of funny because 2 of them are kind of like religious, and The Thing is not religious at all.
It's just
and it's
pure
like,
science alien. Yeah.
It's like I feel like you just were like you didn't have to make them connect to John Carpenter. I don't know why you did that. But
whenever you first mentioned the Apocalypse trilogy, whenever we did Mouth of Madness, I figured that They Live would have been one of them.
you would think so, but They Live, they succeed. In the other 2, it's more up in the air, which we'll get to.
Oh,
hits
that's
the
true.
apocalypse
Yeah,
part. Yeah.
it's
So
not up in the air and in the mouth of madness. It
William,
very
Right.
oh
much
yeah.
loses.
Well, the devil wins. Someone
Yeah, there's a lot
wins,
of
and his
laughter.
name's the devil. William, why don't you tell us what happens in this? Why don't you introduce us to the Prince of Darkness?
Tell us about
Okay.
Brian Marsh, the greatest
So,
protagonist of all time.
yeah, so memorable. This is a very memorable film about a group of like physics or engineering students. They're like science students
Yeah.
that work with Victor Wong, and Victor Wong is in cahoots with the church, and the church wants
Right.
him to come and hang out in this dilapidated old building that has a vial full of green goo that's moving around, and they want to study its properties. And once they're all in the dilapidated building slash kind of church, the goo gets out and mayhem kind of ensues.
Goes
Yeah.
goo
Kind
wild,
of. Yeah.
Goes
some
goo
might
wire,
say.
yeah.
And if you're
Um,
thinking like, hey, I hope 80% of this movie is about them talking about doing nothing that's unrelated to what their actual goal is,
Got a
you
film for
gotta
but
you.
move. We
okay,
got a movie for you, baby.
here's the interesting thing about this movie, and I guess I technically picked it because I kind of half brought it up when we were talking about the other one. Because I think I'm probably the person who likes this movie the most out of all
Okay.
three of us. Andrew,
Sure.
Andrew, known hater. William, known neutral party. You know,
Yeah, neutral to board.
he just goes with the
Yeah.
flow.
Yeah.
What's interesting about this is if you look at In the Mouth of Madness, it's about like a Stephen King, H.P. Lovecraft type guy, and like kind of the meta text is like, what if H.P. Lovecraft was real and then all of his stories came true? This is just straight up, what if you were like watching an H.P. Lovecraft short story in movie form? Because the first 70% of every H.P. Lovecraft story is like them being like, how's the university going to get funding? And like,
Yeah.
oh, well,
Yeah, it
how are we
takes a while
going
to
to
get
move
there. Yeah.
the equipment into the place to study what we think is and it's like, oh, why are there so many boring details? Which to me is
Right.
like, it's almost interesting how like scientifically minded this movie tries to be until suddenly it's not. Like that just
Yeah, they open up a lot
immediately
of
goes
concepts and
away.
then never talk about them again.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's like a group of scientists, and they're gonna help Donald Pleasance stop this thing, and so they're all like, "Oh, we're." And one of the okay, first of all, the cool thing about this is that it was produced by Alive Films. That's a cool like. Of course, that's what John Carpenter
Oh,
uses.
yeah.
And then, of course, it has the score. Interesting bit of trivia. So, John Carpenter, for the opening of this movie, he wanted to use Metallica's "Enter the Sandman," but he couldn't get the rights, and also he like his budgets are always like $10, so he couldn't afford it. So
Yeah.
then he wrote his own version, quote unquote, according to Carpenter, his own version of "Enter the Sandman." Watch this movie and listen to that score, and then just tell me what you think. And then
It's
also, regardless of whether you like it or not, you're gonna hear it because he plays it in its entirety. The opening credits is like 8 minutes long.
it
It's
is
just like everything's like
it's
it's like when you're a
so
kid and you
yeah.
put the credits, like when you're in college and you put the credits on auto time, and so they like move like this.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You're like,
Yeah, it's like the
Yeah,
indie
drop the
movie.
sound
How do we
effects.
get this to 90 minutes? But at the beginning, it's
yeah,
because you know a lot of movies, it's like they'll do the actors and the director at the beginning just to kind of like lead you into it. Or like famously, if you ever saw that terrible Valentine's Day movie, there are like
Maybe a long time ago.
there are like 40 name actors in that movie for 5 minutes. So the credits are going for like 20 minutes, but in this one it's like no, there's only like 10 people, but they slow roll those names.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
It's like scene, director of photography. You know, even
yeah.
the grips are getting a credit at the beginning, which I appreciate.
And
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course.
I think this movie it's like a lot better as it gets closer to the end. But
You can see
I
the
think
light
like
at
one
the
of
end of
the
your day.
yeah, one of the problems with it is that like they don't give you because like even though the thing is an ensemble piece, In the Mouth of Madness is clearly following Sam Neill, but
Mhm.
like the thing is an ensemble piece, but we're following really like Kurt Russell's character and then like Child's character.
Yeah, it's a
and
very
like
contained group
McCready
of
and
guys.
Childs.
Yeah,
Yeah, like we know who the leads are. Like we're not really following the fucking radio guy, you know. But
right. They
in
have a
this
system.
one,
They have a defined hierarchy of people that have like
yeah,
been together for a long time.
in this one, it's like he doesn't really know who to like make a main character because like
Right.
the main
Yeah,
character
Brian
Brian
Marsh.
Brian
Marsh, he
Marsh.
first of all he does have a cool mustache, which leads you to believe he's gonna be cool. But then like he meets the girl who's his love interest, and
Hmm.
like he says something about making a sandwich, and she's like, "That's pretty sexist," and he's like, "I'm a confirmed sexist. Thank you very much." And I was like,
Yeah,
"What the hell?" And then she
she
like
gets
gets
mad.
offended, and he's like, "Hey, I was just kidding." And it's like you guys have literally only talked for 10 seconds, and you've
I
already
know.
insulted her, and then like doubled down on the
Okay, but
He's
insult.
like, this is
to
not
be
how I thought this was
fair,
going to be going. Can we start over?
that
Yeah.
It's
works
like
because the next scene is them waking up in
See,
bed.
and
So that's
right.
then
somehow like
Okay.
and
works.
then they wake up together, and like every line of their dialogue, I've never seen two characters with less chemistry than in this. Like they
Right.
don't, it's not even that like they don't have chemistry, they actively seem to dislike each other
Yeah.
anytime they're in the same room.
They also and that is honestly that's the biggest problem is that other than Father Loomis, which we'll get back to that, but no one really has a really strong presence in this. And this is my second time watching this movie, and as I was rewatching it, I was like, wait, is Brian Marsh the lead? Because he kind of disappears for like the middle
Yeah,
50 minute.
Yeah.
Like he's
right.
there at the beginning talking to the girl, and then once they start setting up science equipment in the church, he is pretty much gone until
Yeah,
like the last 30 minutes of the movie.
Right.
You know?
And like all character
right.
development stuff that could have been happening at the beginning only goes into that love relationship. So
Setup.
when we get
Yeah,
to the
Right.
church, like we don't know who the super married lady is. Like that's how she's introduced to us. And we don't know who this like we kind of know who the wily jokey guy is, but like
We do know
yeah,
that yeah
only
the funny Asian
right.
guy
He's just made a
who
couple
keeps
quips.
he tries to hit on all the women and
Yeah.
accuses them of looking Asian. And I was like, I don't know how to feel about
Right,
these
right.
jokes.
it
That was funny.
was Walter
maybe
Fong, so it's okay.
maybe these
Yeah.
played in the 80s.
And like it's also
Yeah.
like even their dialogue is kind of like, oh, I don't really like you. And another thing is that they like it's just so long before we get to that place.
Yeah.
And we see like what there is, and like what they're kind of working on is a little bit inconsequential to the main score. I will say so like they after like a billion hours of them talking for no reason, then they get to this church. And in the basement of the church is this giant cylinder that's filled with green goo. And they're like, we don't know what this is. We're trying to figure it out. And then like, but there's also, which is my favorite part of the movie, is that outside, like at first, because it's in LA, so they walk past and there's like a bunch of bums. But every time they go back out, the bums are acting like in a very weird, very deliberate
Yeah.
way as it goes on.
They're being
And like to
affected
me,
by
that's like,
something.
yeah, and like they'll look out the window and there's just three bums sitting there or standing there, and then they'll like turn and look again, and now there's like six bums, and they're just staring at them,
Yeah.
and like you're like, what the hell's happening?
They,
And so
they're,
like then
they're,
I'll go ahead.
we should say Alice Cooper is the leader of the bums, and even though the
Yeah.
bums have no dialogue, that does help because then you're like, okay, he does have a presence, to
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
like make the
Yeah.
menace like feel like unified,
The bums are more
Yeah.
defined than the actual characters, thanks to the power
And
of
it's
Alice
funny
Cooper.
because yeah, you recognize the bums way more.
Yeah. It's like there's the leader,
But that like
obviously.
you can even see the kind of like in the Mouth of Madness, they kind of do the same thing where the threat before stuff gets really supernatural.
Mhm.
The threat is just the fact that like the entrances are blocked by like 20 bums, and it's like, yeah, being like
Yeah.
beaten to death by a crowd of 20 people is like
Yeah.
scary. And in the Mouth of
Sure.
Madness does this a lot too. It's like a mob is super scary, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah,
Like
and I think that's what connects them actually is that like because eventually they start the people in the church also start getting affected, and so they kind of start like infecting each other and becoming like these weird demon characters who can't die but want to. But like there's like a
Yeah.
cool part where like one of the nerds is like, hey guys, I'm gonna go catch a movie or something nerdy, and he like walks away, and then like he sees Alice Cooper in his way, and he like turns around to go the other way, and there's like a billion bums, and then Alice Cooper like has a bicycle with a knife on it, which like
Yeah. Forgot about that.
I don't know what I can think of what the purpose for that bicycle would be, but I don't think we would get we get like copyright, we get shut down.
Yeah.
And so like he stabs him, and I found out that was like that was like from Alice Cooper's actual stage show that he
That's
brought, and
cool.
Carpenter was like, "Can you use that for the thing?" But I'm like, okay, but now I'm even more confused why Alice Cooper would bring out a bike with a knife at the end. Like,
Yeah, like what was he doing? Because he's not killing
Yeah.
so. Although in the movie he kills him, and then the bike tire helps him stay like stood up.
Yeah.
So it's cool.
Yeah, it was a cool death.
Um,
for sure.
I wanted him to like fall and be like boing.
Yeah,
and we should
it's
also
so
like
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in a way. Like, this
Yeah.
bicycle
there
weapon.
is something like there's something kind of cool about because the professor, and I don't know the professor, but the professor actually probably is more interesting than the actual main character Brian Marsh, because
Yeah.
his almost like back and forth with Victor Wong is the professor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With Donald Pleasance as the priest is kind of interesting, like, oh, science versus theology, because the whole thing is like, oh, this like capsule has been like guarded by this like secret sect of the church for like hundreds of years or whatever.
Mhm.
And the idea that like, oh, and like stuff's been coming out of it, they've been deciphering it, but then they've like erased part of the decipherings because they don't want anyone to know. Like it's a really cool setup that just doesn't really matter. You know what I mean? Like that's really cool. Like it's a really strong like
there's
backstory.
so much explanation for what they're gonna do and what they think this thing is, for the solution to be like zombie guys that they have to fight.
Yeah,
it's like we don't
yeah.
need to know this much about it. If you're not really gonna, if we don't need to know it at the end,
right?
It's like a not funny Evil Dead, basically, because they just become zombies who try to kill you. But I also think, and this is also one of those things too, where in my mind I was like, did I like think this was another movie? Because to me, one of the coolest things that happens in the movie is once you start studying the artifact or whatever, when you go to sleep, you start getting this dream, and everyone has the same dream.
Yeah,
and the dream is literally, the dream is like saying like, this is not a dream. This is like footage from the future that we're sending to you. Like, you need to see this.
Yeah.
And then they'll like wake up, and it's like, so you never quite know what it is. And I was like, why wasn't that dream like there from the beginning? Because that only starts kind of happening near the end, and it's like that would have been almost cooler if like Donald Pleasance was getting
like the
it.
movie starts off on that,
building on
it, wakes up or something.
You know?
That was the original idea. That's where I think it was John Carpenter's wife who said that she kept having this recurring dream of some creepy guy coming out of a church, and then John Carpenter ran with it, and he's like, "No, you didn't." And then
he's like, "I'm unpleasant. Shut up."
And then she was like, "It was." He was like, "Oh, was it VHS?" And she was like, "No." And he's like, "Well, now it was." But like, and so it's funny that that's his idea, but then, yeah, he doesn't seem to explore it, or even like, it's like definitely the creepiest part of the whole thing.
It's so
but
good.
it's almost an afterthought in Carpenter's brain,
I know, but it's so good that in my mind I was like watching this movie again, being like, I must have gotten it wrong, because it really does not start till the second half.
Yeah, I completely forget about it every time.
And I was like, oh my god, why didn't you just front load this? Because this is the movie.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah,
we're never sure what
it is funny
latching onto ever, because it keeps on changing.
They're transmitting from the year 1999, and I always like that.
The peak of civilization.
I love when 1999 is the future in movies.
Yeah.
If I ever do a future movie, it's going to take place then. I will say, once they get to the church, the movie becomes a lot better, because every time they cut to the group, there's like 3 extra guys that were not there. Like before, you had never seen them before.
Oh, like in the church?
They weren't in the movie.
Yeah, totally.
Like they'll be like, "Oh my god, Crystal got attacked," and it's like that episode of Rick and Morty where like the fake parasite keeps creating new people.
Yeah,
because there's like, oh, now there's a married chick here. Now there's another blonde guy here. Now there's like an old man. Now there's like a black guy. Like, who are these people?
Yeah,
where did they come from?
Oh, they're research students.
And then they'll be like, "Oh my god, Billy's dead." It's like, who the hell are you? Are you part of the cult?
Right.
What's happening?
Are you the one passing out
there's
beers
also like
your Coors Lights?
See, but
it does like a college party.
It starts to get fun, because it is all college kids, and half of them think it's fake.
Yeah.
And there's probably way too much time devoted to them debating whether or not it's fake, because we all,
Yeah.
as the movie going audience, know it's real.
Right.
But then you really
Also,
do.
Josh
Yeah.
said that they're all college kids, but I just want to be clear: the youngest actor in this movie is 37 years
Perfect.
They
old. Go
all
ahead.
they that's how old college students looked in the
Yeah,
70s,
yeah.
because of all the lead paint. It is, yeah, because one of the college kids looks like so old and beaten down. Like, it's
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
like the like long hair balding look.
Yeah.
But no, like it'll cut to like the Asian kid Dennis Dunn as Walter Fong, like he's like eating and watching like a devil Tom and Jerry cartoon and stuff. So
Yeah.
you're like, okay, it's gonna like start to get fun pretty quick, and then
Yeah.
it does ramp up pretty quick after that, which
It
helps.
Yeah.
it does get better. It's still like it almost every time they have a line of like where they're talking, it stops the movie cold because again, like there's nothing to really latch on to in terms of the characters or like what's going on. But it's also like then the special effects start kicking in. Like there's a part where the bums take this guy or like he's outside and like he's looking at the building for way too long, by the way. And then like a bunch of bugs come by him and they eventually like they start chewing at him and he's like, no, no. And then they stab him in the
The
head.
bugs were cool.
And then later we see that guy and he's like talking to the people. He's like, you can win. And he's talking like very weird. And you slowly find out that like the bugs are holding up his head.
Yeah.
And it falls down and then
Yeah.
his body falls. And it's probably one of the coolest, scariest visuals ever.
Yeah.
But then like afterwards, the married lady and the love interest like talk about how they're really good scientists. You're like, oh yeah,
Sick.
this is what the rest of the movie's
Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Y'all are
they're
good.
like, hey, did you forget about Brian Marsh and Catherine Danforth is the girl,
Yeah.
the seminal
Their
love story.
incendiary romance.
No, and honestly too, it's funny because after that guy dies, a lot of it is just one zombified girl slowly moving around,
Yeah.
like owning
Yeah.
people, and
She's like spitting on people, right?
it
or
is
something?
interesting.
Yeah,
she
she like
gets
spits in
yeah.
their
she
mouth.
gets gel blasted.
Yeah,
The gel the goo leaks out of the thing and then it blasts her in the face.
Yeah. It's all coming back.
It's also funny too because at one
Damn,
point,
Josh got too excited describing
Josh
it.
loves
He's
this
like,
movie.
I know,
Josh,
like-
we're carrying this podcast.
I lost my train of thought for a second.
Thank you so much.
no, on rewatch I'm like, this is not as strong as I remember.
Well,
but
don't sell short now.
no, there is a part where the very very old looking college student goes to check the canister and he's like, is anyone in here? And she like snaps his neck.
Yeah.
And he dies obviously. And then later Brian Marsh goes down to like be like, oh, has anyone seen this guy? And he like looks around and then walks away, and then it just pans to that guy's body like 10 feet away. It's like, wait, he didn't even like check the
Yeah.
whole room.
There's
She
also
She didn't hide it at
Got
all.
ADHD, man.
There's
Give her a
also-
break.
there's my favorite scene in the whole movie is when those like him, the guy who broke his neck, and then two other guys come back to life. And like one of the guys has had his throat slit, so it's like leaking, and he's like laughing, he's like, and it's like leaking. And the girl he has like something in her head, and then the guy who broke his neck is just doing this.
Yeah. Remember?
Oh, I'm into
Yeah.
culture. It's like, hey
It's
man, you had the
tight.
Yeah.
easiest.
See, that was cool though, because the one guy with the slit throat, and this is another thing where it's like, man, if this was the thing, they would have really built this up better, and he would have been like a strong character. His name's Calder. I don't know the actor's name because it's again where he's not in much, but he's like the one black guy, and all these white nerds. And when you see him, he's like singing a religious hymn to himself. And you get the sense like, oh, he's trying to fight off like the possession,
Totally.
and then he
Right.
tries to kill himself to like stop it, but it doesn't work. So he's like struggling with it. I'm like, that's a really cool idea, but this guy had like 2 lines before he died,
Right.
so it
Right.
doesn't really
The power of
like
himself
this movie
is
has so many
compelling.
cool
Yeah.
ideas. Yeah,
And it's that thing where the thing that he succeeds here is in the casting. Because, like, you want to know more about a lot of the
Yeah,
characters.
that's true.
It's
yeah,
just like he does not give you any of... Like, everyone's doing a good job performance-wise. It's just like they have nothing to give you. Like, it's just very
Yeah.
straightforward.
The situation's cool.
But I will say so... Yeah. So one of the things is once that girl gets possessed, the goo girl, Josh's girl...
Josh's goo.
She like picks up like, so it's implied that you can take Satan out of the mirror. You have to like be possessed and put your hand in the
They
mirror.
also don't
And,
imply
like,
that until about 10 minutes before it happens, which is another problem
Yeah.
with the movie.
And then she tries to like, she finds a compact like this big and she tries to pull them out and like she can only fit her fingers in. And it's like, girl, you're wasting everyone's time.
Right.
And also, oh, by the way, so I was wrong. You won't get Satan. According to the story, that girl is now Satan. She's been possessed by Satan, and so Satan
The super
is the
married
one
girl.
who's trying to
Right.
bring.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how did she get possessed in the
I thought
first
she
place?
was.
What was the scene where she
I
got
thought
possessed?
she was like the.
She's literally like in bed, and I think she has a dream, and then she opens her eyes, and then all the goo comes into her.
So
face.
does she ever go downstairs and like look at the thing? Does it happen then?
Yes, it doesn't. It
Okay.
starts then, but that's not where it ends. And then she goes like and has a dream. Or
Okay,
something.
and that's how we know.
Yeah, honestly, a lot of these characters look the same. It is tough, and a lot of time is devoted to the like now not dead characters being trapped in different rooms and like discussing digging a wall between the rooms, and it does go on way too long.
And then like in the course of the story, you find out, okay, so like Satan is trying to bring out this anti-god, which which brings out antimatter, like our God makes
right,
matter.
physics and religion meeting.
And so, yes, and then you find out later that Jesus Christ was like a fortune teller or something, and he figured out he like was a scientist back in those days. That's why they thought he was the son of God, and so he figured out that the anti-god was coming. That's why he was trying to warn everyone. And like if you're not paying attention, they like mention this in passing and it never comes up.
It is, and it's also like 40 minutes before it even happens. Yeah, I thought it was, the idea was that it's the Antichrist trying to bring Satan, like the son of Satan's trying to bring, because he's like, Father, or whatever.
No. He's Satan and he's trying to bring the other.
Oh, well, I guess it doesn't matter, I guess.
Oh, by the way, William said that he didn't get that. I watched this movie 3 times, and this is
okay, cool. I was like, damn, I was really zoning out.
So
like, I did not catch that at all.
But here's
it's like so fast.
But here's the thing, though. Whenever she starts reaching through the full-length mirror, it's really cool looking. So I think we should acknowledge that.
It's really cool looking, and my favorite part is that the anti-god has like a devil hand.
Yeah, he's got a demon hand.
He's like,
yo, from a strong hand.
It's funny to be like, this is science and religion meeting. Science is explaining what religion never could. But yeah, I mean, he still has a monster head.
Yeah, right. Like, obviously, he's still the devil.
Of course, he's gonna still have a monster head.
So the devil is logic, and then religion is whenever logic breaks down in the quantum world. Is that kind of where they're trying to go with this? Because that was a big conversation they had.
See, I don't know.
Came back up with. Like, there was a big thing about like logic versus how our natural world breaks down the smaller you get, and that was all they really said about that. And that seemed like it was going to be a big deal.
Which doesn't like I feel like, see, to me, and again, that's the interesting concept along with the dream coming back. The whole mirror thing is just pure magic sorcery. Like, it doesn't relate to any of this, like, at all.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, by the way, I'm sorry, I misspoke. He wasn't a time traveler. He was an alien.
Oh, thank God. Everyone can go to sleep tonight.
And again, one line. They talk about this very, very quickly. And you're like...
That's like signs, and signs the aliens are demons.
It's also like, hey guys, hey Ridley, John Carpenter already beat you to the punch.
And I was going to say that the whole Jesus was actually, an alchemist thing. That's very Prometheus code.
And there's a black goo. Hey Ridley, we just caught you, buddy.
You thought no one saw
caught you stealing.
We've seen Prince.
Yeah, you were right up until 2025. You thought no one remembered this movie? Well, you were correct.
It's dog shit now.
And so they're trying to get there, and then they all start fighting each other, and then so that she finds a bigger mirror, which is a very funny thing for your devil character to have to do. Like, she's like Goldilocksing her way through this abandoned church.
Just kind of,
for, like, this one's too big.
We should say too that the second zombies appear, Donald Pleasance, the priest, like hides in a room and does not do anything.
Yeah.
He sees what's going on and he thinks about doing things. Never does a single. Oh, he does chop off. No, he does chop off her arm, but then she just grows another one. That's right. Okay,
Well,
so he does do one thing.
But also, before we get, because that's the very end. But before we get to that, there's also like, so they start possessing everyone, and I just want to say like Dennis Dunn sees like 3 people get possessed, and his overall reaction is just like,
it's just the way of the world.
he'll be like, "Oh, are you okay?" And like, there's literally goo like spilling out of her eyeballs and her mouth, and he's like, "Oh, hey, I'm gonna get some lunch. You want anything?" It's like, no, man, there's something very wrong with all these people. What are you doing?
Yeah, this is not a time for any exploration.
They get they're very like, oh, this is still normal for way too long, honestly.
Yeah.
The second I saw 50 homeless people gathered outside, I'd be like, all right, let's
get a chopper.
Get out of here.
Someone airlift us out.
Josh was like, as soon as I see one homeless person, I'm
right.
I'm like, as soon as I see one homeless person, I'm like, oh, I'm in Portland, Oregon. And there's one every block.
Yeah,
so.
That is true. I mean, we both lived in Portland, Josh. If you see 10 homeless guys outside, you're not calling anyone. You're just like,
Prince of Darkness every single day where I live.
Literally. But so then, I mean, we'll go spoilers. Check it out. It's the third one. You have to but don't watch it before Mouth of Madness. Like,
maybe watch
it first. Do watch it before, because Mouth of Madness is way better.
No. Because watch. Here's my reasoning. You're gonna watch The Thing, which nothing's gonna be better than The Thing.
The Thing is perfect.
Movie.
It's a perfect.
And then you watch this one, and you're like, well, of course, it's not gonna be better than The Thing. And then you watch In the Mouth of Madness, and you're like, oh, that was really good. Because you've already forgotten about this movie.
I'm struggling. I'm struggling from watching this ago.
No, you'll remember the dream, and you'll remember the dream's really cool. That's it.
We'll get into spoilers. And so then, like, the hands coming out. And so that's kind of what I wanted to talk about, because William was saying, it's like religion. Religion was there to kind of explain the science stuff that they hadn't figured out at the time. And now they've kind of converged to, like, solve the ultimate evil or whatever. But, like, then at the end, she just kind of does God stuff and she wins. So it's like, what were you trying to say, John Carpenter?
Right.
Yeah, she just pushes her. Catherine Danforth, the very memorable love interest to Brian Marsh, sees what's happening. She sees that, like, everyone's getting owned by zombies. She sees the devil coming through the mirror.
She literally walks out of a room that you didn't know she was in for the last hour and a half.
And she realizes, she's like, I got to stop this. She lunges into the devil, knocking her and the devil into the mirror, into the death realm. Again, looks
cool.
Looks crazy cool.
That was
awesome. That is an insanely cool.
That's the
looking
best part
scene.
of the movie, yeah.
And just like her, like, reaching out, like, it's insanely good.
Herself.
And then,
right?
Yeah.
And then Brian Marsh and the professor, like, that was crazy. And they leave. They're done.
Well, no. Immediately, Donald Pleasance is like, "Fuck that," and he breaks the mirror so she can't get out.
That, smart move.
Right.
And like everyone's like, "No, but it's okay because we really."
Was she possessed whenever she did that, or did she like totally sacrifice herself?
No. She sees Donald Pleasance cut off that girl's arm, and then it grows back, and so she realizes that you can't kill it with human weapons, and so she's like, "Oh, well, let me just jump in there. Let's just get in there." And then she's like, she has her hand out, and it's like, "Hey, you made that choice, girl. You can't be having your hand out. We're not gonna see you." That's kind of the whole point.
That dimension, you don't know
and I will say,
thank you.
We love to show how much we love our audience. I was gonna make that the cover photo because it's quite literally the coolest image in the entire movie. But I felt like you guys should watch it because you
it. You need to have some
to get that image. You should have to sit through the whole.
I am trying to think of another iconic shot from this movie, and I mean, obviously the dream's cool, but it's also just cool because it's like moving VHS.
I mean, the bug stuff is cool. I remember the bugs
really
being
like looks.
Yeah. The bug stuff is cool, but it's moving. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Maybe just
and like even the bike thing is kind of funny. It's a cool image. I like the look of the cylinder. It's just like after a while.
It's very workmanlike, the whole thing. Maybe just a shot of like the goo and the vial. I don't know. I'm not going to tell you how to do your job.
Oh, I already did it. I don't know why you thought you were helping.
You know, it's an interesting trivia.
I did the jar, by the way.
Cool.
which everyone knows. Why are we even
The
talking
job-
about this?
Yeah.
They've already
You
seen
clicked
it
on the
because they
button.
clicked on it.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, but we
At
can.
this point,
Well, we don't know yet. I haven't seen it. I don't watch these.
yeah.
But no, the interesting thing, if you're watching this on like Amazon Prime or
Yeah.
whatever, I don't know if you know, like, but if you're watching on Amazon Prime, it'll like say the name of the character and the actor.
The
and you just
X-ray.
mouse over to pause it or whatever. Yeah. Thank you, Jeff Bezos. Fully morally good with everything you do.
You saved yourself with the X-ray.
They call the priest Father Loomis, even though he is never referred to by name in the movie. They just call him that, and I'm like, wait, did John Carpenter like decide he was Father Loomis, or did like the guy doing the subtitles for the VHS home release later just be like, I guess he's Loomis in this one too?
Well,
Yeah.
I don't know if our audience knows this, but Amazon Prime is hilariously inept at everything. Like
That could
they had
be
hard,
also.
they had hard boiled on there, and you're not supposed to have hard boiled anywhere in the world. But just because someone uploaded it and Amazon Prime didn't check, they also like up until like I think
Hard-boiled
it's still
still
there, but like for their Nosferatu.
Oh.
Oh no, they took it off
Like-
after a week or so. But then they have Nosferatu. I think if you check right now, Nosferatu has
the
worst
shitty AI.
art that you've ever seen.
It's
for
so
no
bad.
reason. Like Amazon Prime has, I'm sure that nobody just checked and someone was like, "Oh yeah, we'll just put Loomis."
Yeah.
That's his other thing, you know.
But I also feel like there is. I feel like I saw it on like something else where it was Loomis.
Maybe-
I
that
don't
might
know. Doesn't
It is-
matter.
it's also that thing where it's funny because it's like, I bet you one time Carpenter was like, "Are they related?" And he was like, "Yeah, they are."
Yeah,
Get out of
just
my
like
way, God.
just fully with his bong, like, yes, shut up,
Yeah.
stop talking to me. But I do like the idea that Loomis, it's like the family, one's a priest, one's a psychiatrist.
Religion versus
and they
science.
just-
They're
Oh my
inept
God.
at their
they're
jobs.
they're both
They
idiots.
both release terror
Yeah,
to the world.
They're both bad at their
Yeah.
jobs.
No, Loomis is way better. This guy's like, let's figure out what's wrong. Loomis is like, that child is having mental health issues. Let's shoot him in the face 8 times.
Except for like the sequels where Loomis is like part of like let's let him kill people. So
Yeah,
They're
I
the
love
real
Loomis.
Anton Chigurhs.
Also, very funny that Donald Pleasance was apparently scared to drive, and so like a crew member had to take him home every night, and that he would like be terrified the whole time. It's like, you live in LA,
Yeah.
Donald Pleasance. What do you do? You're driving 99% of the
yeah,
time.
you're not in New York. It doesn't even make sense.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean it's okay. It's just like there's just too many. There's too many ideas that are firing, and he never like finishes
Yeah.
any of his thoughts, and so there's nothing to really hold on to. There's like certain parts that are cool, and I definitely have watched it a couple of times because sometimes you just want to put on a Carpenter movie, but you don't want
Yeah.
to pay attention.
It's almost like it's cool to see like ideas he did better
Yeah.
elsewhere, but it's like
Yeah.
it's still like he's still such a good director that even his most like workman-like thing like works,
Yeah, and I think that it's either way. It's interesting that he kind of had this idea, and they kind of let him run with it wherever he wanted because no studio was suggesting this shit. And so it's interesting just to see like, oh yeah, that's what artists do. Like sometimes that shit doesn't
Yeah.
connect, sometimes it does. And I'm sure there's people who fucking love this movie who are like, that's my
Right.
favorite character,
we all where are the Brian Marsh heads?
Yeah.
Sound off in the
got
comments
stuck in the
if
marsh.
you love
Yeah.
Brian Marsh.
And also, if you're here and you're in the comments, put what order you put these
yeah.
movies in, because I think for us it's obvious
Yeah.
order, like the thing,
The
Kingdom
Yeah.
of the Madness, and then this
Yeah.
one. But if you have a difference of
Yeah.
opinion, we would love to hear it. So yeah. So thank you guys. Any last words?
Yeah, definitely watch this to complete the trilogy. It's got some cool images. It's Carpenter. It's got a good soundtrack.
Yeah, there's enough there. The dream alone is enough for you to be like, oh, this is how like every creepypasta got started. Was this like
the-
crazy dream?
The Dream, the Bug Guy, and the Final Image are
Bicycle
all
blade.
top-notch.
And Brian
Um,
Marsh's mustache. We
yeah.
all love the
And
Marsh.
the bicycle. This is the suspect.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you guys for joining us. We'll see what we do next week. It is Black History Month, so maybe we'll cover something related. But yeah, we'll see you guys next week on the Bomb Squad.